And thanks for taking the time to jump in and chat. It's your I would classify you as the notorious most well-known person in comic books. I would probably say.
Not in comic
Um,
books.
no,
No, I wouldn't say that. In comic books, that's
no,
pretty. That's
okay.
a lot of people.
In modern, I'd say you dominate the conversations, man. It feels like every time I open Twitter, someone's talking about Ethan.
We're in a bubble. Okay, like we're
Right,
trapped in a
right.
bubble.
It's not reality.
Chad, I think that you might not realize it yet, but did you see the show Lost? Do you remember the show Lost on ABC?
A little bit. I never watched it to completion, but yeah, I know of the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Saying that like I'm the most popular or whatever person in comics is like saying you're the most popular person on the island. We, all of us, you
I see.
included, were on a plane at some point and the plane went down and suddenly you're on this island and everybody else is gone. You don't know where anybody else is. You're just on this bizarre island that I think represents hell. I didn't finish watching the rest of Lost. I don't know how it ended. Don't spoil it for me. Or if I do know, I don't recall. I don't remember how it ended. But I think that's where we are right now. We're in hell. This is indie hell. And we're surrounded by some very strange people. And it might seem like this is comics, but it isn't comics. This is something else
Right,
entirely.
right.
Hell.
Well, I'm super excited that you took the time to chat with me because I've kind of seen your journey from afar, and I've found it definitely both very interesting and both inspirational. I think um, you may not be the core pioneer of it, but you're definitely one of the founding pioneers of exploding, I'd say, comic books through crowdfunding. Um, so I guess kind of just for an educational history for myself, give me a little bit, like talk to me about you were this kind of all-star artist at DC. Like, how did that happen? Who gave you your first big break?
Well, I don't know if it was a person that gave me a big break. It kind of slowly happens. I ended up at
Hmm.
DC in the late '90s because my
Okay.
comic book Cyber Frog at Harris Comics just didn't
Yep.
work out. I mean, they were hedging their bets. They were hoping that like a toy deal and an animation deal was going to work out. We had Fox Kids, we had Playmates Toys, we had Mainframe Animation that was doing Beast Wars back then. They were going to produce the animation, like early
Oh wow.
CGI animation for Cyberfrog. And you'll never guess who
Wow.
was running Mainframe back then. It was Dan DiDio. So, Dan DiDio, famously of DC Comics, of the era where I worked at DC Comics. But the whole thing fell apart as these deals normally do. Even though we had really good representation, it just didn't last. And Harris Comics could basically no longer afford to keep Cyberfrog going. They were a small publisher. They said, we'll cut your page rate by like 2/3, I think it was. You can stay and
Right.
do it, but I tried. I did 2 issues, and I couldn't pay the rent. So
Right.
it was too hard. I went to DC Comics and got work there on the first book. When you go to DC Comics, when you go to Marvel, just take whatever they have, whatever you can get from them. They had a book called
Right.
Impulse that was looking for a new artist, so I took over that book, and there I met Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns had just arrived at DC Comics as well. He was who he was somebody's assistant, Richard Donner's assistant at the time. So he was doing all kinds of stuff in Hollywood as kind of a guy who was writing stuff, sending out emails for. He was just a Richard Donner's kind of, I don't want to say gopher. He was his assistant, and
Mhm.
so he had all kinds of contacts, and he just launched a book for them. I think he started out with some kind of a crossover, and then he came in and did Stars and Stripe. And Stars and Stripe was another kid book, just like Impulse was a kid book. So those two books crossed over, and that's when I met Jeff. I did the cover for his book. We intended to work together, and it just didn't work out timing wise. So instead, the two of us planned to do this book called a big Flash crossover, where we didn't have to work on kid books anymore. We could do horror. The book was called Flash Iron Heights. It was a critical success, if not, a sales success. These were, I think they were like $10 comics back then, prestige format,
Wow.
48 pages. Everybody liked it. It took us over to Marvel Comics together, where we were supposed to work together, but that didn't work out. I ended up doing New X-Men. And then when we came back to DC after a short stint at Marvel, um, DC put us on the return of Green Lantern together. And that's really, I think, where my big break happened. I've been doing a lot of things. People, you could say New X-Men was a big break. It was. But getting to bring back Hal Jordan as Green Lantern for a book called Green Lantern Rebirth, I think was the biggest possible break that anybody could have. And I knew it, even though I wasn't a Green Lantern fan. I knew that like Green Lantern had Star Trek level obsessive devotees. I knew it, and I knew there was a group of people at the time called Hal's Emerald Advancement Team that were driving. They were early ComicsGate. They were on the internet driving DC Comics nuts, saying, "What is all of this Kyle Rayner stuff? Let's bring back Hal Jordan." And so we knew that. We were excited to be the guys that got to give in to Heat's demands. We gave in to terrorism. We gave him back Hal Jordan, and it was an enormous hit. So really, that me and Jeff Johns, our partnership from like 2004 to like 2017, we worked. I think we worked together in 2017. Was really good. That was great.
I've seen a lot of people still to this day reference that Green Lantern run you did. And I checked out some of the art today, like on issue 5, that double spread of Green Lantern. Like it's pretty killer. So I can see why you quickly kind of became a top talent. So
thanks.
With that, like how, like before kind of getting into the craziness that set you on a different trajectory, what was like the company culture like when you first started, and then how did you kind of start seeing things change that ended up, bubbling to a head later on?
Well, I think I know.
Like, I guess the difference, because you did a little bit of work too at Marvel,
yeah.
right? Like, so you did some work at Marvel, you did some work at DC. Talk to me a little bit of like, what it was like. Like, did you get to tour their offices? Like, how did they treat you as like a talent?
All the time. Yeah, I lived in New York, upstate New York, so I would take the train down to the city all the time. Yeah, you'd always go into the offices. And I got to go to both offices. When I worked for Marvel, I got to go there, and I saw there's a very stark difference between the two companies. DC Comics is very clean. You go there, it's like a doctor's office. It's freshly painted and everything. The doors for the editors are usually closed. If they're open, they're in conversation, but it really looked immaculately clean and well kept. There wasn't a lot of shouting going on in the office. At Marvel, it was the opposite. It was chaos. There was filth on the floor, holes punched in the walls. When I went in there, and there were just people in cubicles screaming and everything, and it just seemed, I went in there like, it's a madhouse in here. I miss DC. I signed a 2-year agreement to work for Marvel Comics, and the second I went over there and experienced the culture of Marvel, I wanted to go back to DC. At DC, they were professional, and they were brutally honest with you. If your work wasn't good, they would tell you, this is just not cutting it,
And can you, like, do you also know, I heard that DC treats their talent better as it relates to like royalties, not that they're necessarily ever great in comics, but
that's very true. That's not even a question. Yeah. Everybody will tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah, we get royalties. First of all, if you create characters at DC, they encourage you to create new things over there. And they kind of they look at what you're doing and they kind of go, we're going to be using this. Like when I created Atrocitus with Jeff Johns and the emotional spectrum, Saint Walker, Larfleeze, Indigo One, Monk, like all these other characters associated with the emotional spectrum, they said, we're going to be using these in film and animation and video games. So we're going to send you some contracts over that are going to be allow you character equity, they're called. It's not co-ownership, but what it means is you own a tiny little piece of those characters. And when we use them, outside of comics and actually even in comics, even though I get like a character equity check from comics for appearances of Atrocitus and it's 15 cents. It's not much, but at least it's something, it's something.
Right.
But when these characters appear in video games or movies or cartoons or anything like that, the checks are substantial. Sometimes like 1 time 6 figures for stuff that, you create for them. So they have these character equity payouts, and they're good. They happen twice a year. Twice a year you get them, and then they're regular royalties.
Wow.
Marvel,
and you got a thank you credit, right? In Zack Snyder's Justice
Yeah,
League.
a
Is
few
that?
movies and
Yeah.
cartoons I've had thank you credits,
Awesome.
especially in Zack Snyder's movies, which was funny because I had a confrontation about him later, which made that extra funny. Yeah, like the thank yous don't come with money. They're like
Okay. They're just professional
we use
acknowledgement
some of
of
your
okay.
ideas, not
Cool.
necessarily the ideas that you own equity in, but remember that
Hmm.
time you drew this scene in which this happened. You can't own equity in that, but we did translate that straight to screen. So here's a thank you. We borrowed some of your ideas, and those are nice too. They're really nice, but it's better to get paid.
And when you're working for DC, is there like is it kind of like the other forms of different entertainment industry, given that you are the talent, is it competitive in terms of are the other artists, because everyone's kind of vying for contract renewals, is it yeah, it's
Yeah,
I could say
it
it's super
is.
competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are some people who, you'll find that like when you're in a pretty nice spot, and I never really needed to be too competitive because for some reason
Mm,
it always sort of worked out that I had a nice top dog cushy position over there. Like whatever I was working on was something that just by coincidence, because I was working with Jeff Johns, other people envied. And I do remember
mm,
like I would have, friends who were other artists who knew I was about to work on something like Flash Rebirth, bringing back Barry Allen,
right.
and they would like underhandedly campaign to get that gig, and I feel like, how is that
Yeah.
okay? Like, what is this? But that's
That's like
competition,
Pedro.
that's the way it is.
Yeah. That's like the guy from Game of Thrones and the Fantastic Four, Pedro Pascal or whatever. In Game of Thrones, he was living with his roommate, and he heard that he was auditioning for some part in Game of Thrones, which he ended up getting. But he got the agent's number and quickly like did a little take and then sent it to them, and it's just like that's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's
Yeah,
yeah, it is kind of treacherous,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
understandable, man. It's a dog eat dog world in the
It
arts and
is. Yeah,
comics and entertainment, but
it is. It is. So at that time too, what was the uh, they allowed you to keep the original comic book art at that time, or what, or was
always.
it because always? So
While I
is it
was there
correct that
anyway, I should say not always in history. In the old days, I
right?
think they kept the artwork, but in my entire time from 1998 to 2018,
Mm.
that 20 years, yeah, of course, the artwork was always yours.
And that being frank, is that because also that's kind of an acknowledgement of we know you're going to sell the art and that's going to help subsidize the page rates, so to speak, or it was just they just
Maybe,
felt
I
that
mean,
you
but a
guys.
lot of people
Yeah.
like don't sell their artwork ever. Like Graham
Right.
Nolan,
Right.
doesn't sell his artwork. He's got it all.
Right.
So,
Right.
I think it's more like an acknowledgement of the physical artwork is your property. In all fairness, the
Yeah.
characters on the artwork do belong to us, but the physical artwork does belong to you. So we do have to return it, or never lay claim to it. As soon as people started buying scanners and scanning artwork, I mean, when I
Hmm.
first got there, the culture was, I mean, this is crazy, but it was it was part of the whole thing. Like you had their FedEx account number or their UPS or whatever it was. I think they were using FedEx, but you had their FedEx account number and you had to get pages done and then put those pages in a FedEx box and get them to FedEx by 5 p.m. so they would
Wow.
have them the next day or else you'd get in trouble. So they'd say, we need a cover, and so you knew your hard deadline was as long as it took to FedEx at 5 p.m. You know what I mean? It's like
Wow.
that's it. Like if they said we need that cover tomorrow, you had until 5 p.m. to get that cover done and get it over to DC Comics. Now you could do it overnight. You could, if you have a scanner, you could just. So that's made things a lot
Wow.
easier. And then you always maintain control of your artwork. Back then, again, there was a guy who had a job called art returns, and he curated all the original art. I swear it was crazy in this big gigantic vault. And he would go through and
Wow.
he'd be like, the inker gets this many pages, 1/3, the penciler gets 2/3, and he'd divvy them up and then
Oh.
send them out. And it was always like 8 months later, so the pages weren't hot anymore.
Right.
But yeah, like of course, I think just people decided that it just made sense. The physical art would be the property, especially since became kind of valuable over time.
Well, now it's super. It's a massive, like, modern art. can go, like a Greg Capullo could be like 50 grand.
Oh, sure. And more than that. But I
Or
mean, think of
or
all,
Lee, yeah, yeah.
Jack Kirby at Marvel Comics. Like, where's that artwork?
Oh my
Where's
god.
that
Oh
original
my god.
artwork
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
In the garbage, probably.
Crazy, crazy. So going back to, so you're working there, you're getting bigger and bigger gigs, and then what happens with you is definitely a sensitive spot, because I've been through something similar, not as crazy and high profile as yourself, obviously. But so walk me through, um, what sent you to create and go to, crowdfunding. Who are these actors? What, like, what was their motives? And people, like, I just want to hear the story, from directly from yourself, because it's a terrible thing. And what they did was try to, I mean, your income, your livelihood is a comic book illustrator, and to completely blacklist you is, trying to make you homeless. Like, it's disgusting, and it's we shouldn't have any tolerance for that type of behavior. So, walk me through that, because that's got to be one of the most devastating things that you've probably ever been through.
Yeah, I think if I could go back in time now, and if I could do
Mm-hmm.
something differently, it would be
Mm-hmm.
to never, to do like certain other conservatives do in comics, never discuss my politics ever. If I could,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a phrase people say, don't discuss politics or religion.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about comics and the comic book industry, that only goes one way. Because if you're working in mainstream comics, all you hear all day long is left wing pablum. That's all you hear. You hear it from your
Yes.
editors, you hear it from your peers, you hear it from the
Yes.
fans, you hear it over and over again. And you're like, I can't be the only Republican in comics. That just can't be the case. Um, but it certainly does feel like it. And by the way, like these people are allowed to speak the most hateful bile about Christianity, about
Yes.
whoever. If there's a Republican candidate, he's the stupidest, most evil human being in the world. And you've just got to sit there and take it. Now, at
Yes.
some point, I got popular enough where I just felt like I'm going to announce myself as a Republican. I have a Facebook
Mm-hmm.
page. I'm going to retweet Breitbart articles. I'm going to talk about my faith. I'm going to talk about my politics. I'm going to do it in a fun manner where I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
give it to them the way they've been giving it to us the entire time. And to me, my attitude was fair's fair. I mean, I'm not going to go beyond that. I'm not going to be worse. I'm not going to be,
Mm-hmm.
praying for anyone's death or anything like they do. But I'm going to be talking about, whoever is I'm going to make fun of Barack Obama. I'm going to dare to make fun
Sure.
of Barack Obama. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
talk about Trump. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
retweet like towards
Yeah, you shouldn't have to. Yeah, sorry, go.
2016 the memes of the green frog. What's his name? Pepe. I'm going to retweet Pepe memes. Well, I was doing this, and to me, like I'd amassed a pretty big following on my Facebook page of conservative fans, but also fans who really liked my work, but were unfortunately really put off by my politics. And while
Yeah.
and I think other conservatives are able to sort of grit our teeth and grind our teeth, maybe over the
Mm-hmm.
politics of somebody like Bill Sienkiewicz or Gail Simone or any of these other activists that we have to interact with, even though, because their work dominates the whole field, we're able to deal with that and just suck it up and go, yeah, there are liberals in the world. Well, as it turns out, these people cannot tolerate conservatives in any way, in any capacity in their space. I got called a Nazi over and over and over again, starting around, when Barack Obama was elected, 2008, 2007, whatever it was. And then people started this conspiracy that my signature, which is shaped like a little diamond, okay, was a
Right.
swastika. It was a hidden swastika. I've had this signature since 1987, and it is when I was a little kid I created it. And
Crazy.
people started saying it's a swastika. He's a Nazi. So me, with all good humor, I started to make Nazi jokes, self-deprecating Nazi jokes. I
Mm-hmm.
had one of my friends mock up my signature to look like a Nazi flag, like it looked like a swastika, and it said "Van Sciver über alles" and like, a really nice sort of text font. And then, which would just mean Van Sciver above all else. It's not, oh my God, Uber always. I had a sketchbook that, again, because, the Nazi stuff, I had a sketchbook that was called My Struggle, and all these things. And it was just a sketchbook that detailed my earliest work to where I was now. Just, jokes about like how these people are calling me a Nazi because I'm a conservative. Isn't that silly? The problem is my jokes were used as evidence against me once Trump became president. So people went back in time and found all this Nazi stuff he was saying. He is a Nazi, which was
that's their go-to,
yeah.
the Nazi bigot, because it just instantly, no facts, just shut down the conversation and say it enough until people believe it. It's like the same playbook that they used with Gina, right? Like, it's disgusting.
Yeah, Gina did absolutely nothing wrong. I did. Okay, I want you to understand. Like, I got angry and I said some things
Mm,
at some point. Like, I said, I'm just going to sit here and watch the Democrat Party after Trump was elected kill themselves.
mhm,
And then I put a
mhm,
meme that said suicide watch, and it was a little figure eating popcorn while somebody was hanging themselves. And somebody
mhm.
said, "Don't ever make jokes about suicide, Ethan." And I said, "Kill yourself, loser." Kill yourself at the time was slang. Everybody was using it on the internet, like just kill yourself, kill yourself.
It's not. That's pretty. I mean, if you listen to half of the edgy stand-up comedians, the way more pushing the envelope than that. That's very mild.
Well, it
And
was just
again,
it's not even that it was
yeah,
milder. It's what people were saying. There are rap
yeah,
songs that say kill yourself, and it's one of these things that
yeah.
became immediately intolerable as soon as I said it. It became sincere. Ethan's telling his fans to kill themselves and commit suicide. That was sent over to DC Comics along with a lot of stuff. When Trump became president, this is what finally did it. Trump, and it was the whole thing was crazy. I was surrounded by people who were, uh, you know, um, I started to hear whispers that people were talking about me from other people. Shane Davis was one of them. He was in these secret rooms where they were just like, we got to disemploy Ethan Van Sciver, essentially. Another artist who I didn't know sent me a message and said, don't you know that your vote for Trump is going to result in the death of millions of your queer peers or something like that? And I said, good. Right back to him in a message. It's insane. If I really believed that, I wouldn't have said anything like that. But I did kind of say something like it was a little bit more verbose than that. But essentially, I don't care. Stop messaging me this stuff. My vote for Trump was
Right.
for my own reasons. I don't vote because of the benefit of this particular party, this group of people, that group of people. But that was circulated around all the people in private
Mm,
that were already disgruntled with me, and basically all the writers in the mainstream comics, or at least the ones that I knew or knew who I was, made a pact to never work with me again. And that was
right.
delivered to DC Comics as well. Now, the whole time this was happening on a whole other front, there were people like Renfamous, people like Daryleo, who were calling me an out and out racist, who were uh, beating the drums of a campaign that I was secretly a white supremacist on
How do you
the
think
internet.
someone like Renfamous, so back when Twitter like verification actually meant something, she was followed by all sorts of like across the industry, like in gaming, like all senior level people. Like, how does somebody like? Is this like? Do you think she like? Do you like? How did she come to gain kind of this? Go like? Why are people listening to that individual?
But there are only conspiracy theories to explain it, Chad. But
Yeah.
there's a company called Firebell, and one of there's an individual named Kwanzaa, who was a black indie writer in comics who's pretty well known. And he also works for Firebell. And Firebell basically, they you can hire them to control and maintain a narrative on the internet. That's
Mm,
what they do. They're paid internet trolls.
mm,
Renfamous also works for Firebell and knows Kwanzaa. And there are other people who also, you'll see, know Kwanzaa, work for Firebell or possibly do. We're not quite sure. Also, on top of that, there was an entire website called Comics Alliance that was completely made up of what we used to call SJWs, these journalists.
Right.
They used to work there and they would write the most acidic, hateful stuff, about conservatives, but also demand change in comics. They went out of business. All of those people fragmented all over the internet. All those journalists fragmented, they're everywhere. And they're a coalition of SJWs as well. One of them ended up as an editor at DC Comics. But they all kind of were well-known, well-liked, prominent figures in comics. So they all knew each other. They listened to each other. They have whisper networks, we called them. Private rooms where they plan and orchestrate the destruction of conservatives in comics. And that sounds crazy.
Wow.
I mean, or it sounded crazy then. I don't know if it sounds crazy anymore.
Right.
But I mean, because now it's
Yeah.
pretty clear that that's what was going on. But that was what was happening. And there were famous comic book creators in those whisper networks, along with these paid professional agitators who knew how to control and maintain a narrative. So if they came after you, they would put together a story about you, and then they would all support it and demand that it get retweeted and that it would gain prominence. And they knew people, they knew ways, they knew people in the media. So suddenly you have these articles written about you, calling you a white supremacist in the Daily Beast and the Miami Herald, like, in the Daily Buzz or whatever it is. What Daily Buzz, isn't that something else? Whatever big media outlets. There was going to be an article about me in the Atlantic. One of these guys was calling for, hey, do you have any stories about Ethan Van Sciver harassing you? Harassing you. That was the Ethan Van Sciver harasses people. That was the thing that they were going with back then. I'm going to write a big article for the Atlantic. And I actually said, hey, the Atlantic, like if anything kind of turns up about me that isn't true in your magazine, I will sue you for defamation. The publisher of the Atlantic had to come forward and say, we're not going to run an article about you. This guy is, he's a freelancer. We're not going to run his article. But that article ended up somewhere else in some other. So, I mean, just basically every single day, Chad, I was hanging on by my fingernails onto my job, onto my career. And on top of that, while this was happening, I discovered Richard C. Meyer's Diversity in Comics channel, because while this was happening, there was a dedicated little group of YouTubers who were making videos that basically said, what's happening to Ethan Van Sciver right now is a conspiracy and it's bullshit. It's
Right.
SJWs. They're unseating him because he's a conservative. And they were the only people who were saying nice things about me at that time. And you have to understand, I'm somebody who I'm the guy who brought back Green Lantern. I've never had this kind of criticism levied at me before. I've never had the internet hate me before. I'm used to it now. But then it was a brand new sensation, and I really didn't like it. So I found comfort in this group of people who were just like, we know what's happening to you. It's all part of this SJW incursion into comics. They're destroying comics, and they're destroying the lives of conservatives who also work in comics. And I showed up at Richard C. Meyer's chat and said hello, and that got spread around the Whisper networks. And I started receiving messages from people, things that we now refer to as night letters, saying if you're associated with this guy, Richard C. Meyer, who was an effective spokesperson against them, it's going to be bad for your career. So that's basically how this all happened. It was
So they were kind of like a support group for you. So did they? I'm assuming then they were the ones who kind of encouraged you to say, "Hey, Ethan, you should launch something on Indiegogo."
no. Yeah,
No? Okay.
nobody had thought of anything like that. It wasn't like that.
Okay.
ComicsGate, what ComicsGate was back then was a network of YouTubers that were complaining about the left and what the left was doing, and journalists and things. And we didn't call it ComicsGate. The left called it ComicsGate because they were trying to discredit it the way they felt they had done to Gamergate. So they were saying, we targeted Gamergate, we destroyed Gamergate. That's up to you to decide if that's true or not. I have no opinion about who won Gamergate. But over here, we're going to try to do the same thing here in comics and stamp out opposition. So we're calling it ComicsGate. Nobody had ideas about making comic books until it kind of became clear. I started a YouTube channel in October and November of 2017. It already existed, but I only had family photos on it, family videos and things. So I cleared all that out. And I started a YouTube channel because I said they're calling me a white supremacist, and I guess I can stand to lose my job, or maybe I need to defend my job. These people are talking about controlling the narrative, and they have a megaphone, and I don't. I have no way of speaking for myself, so I need a YouTube channel where I can do that. And that became Comic Artist Pro Secrets, which was called such because on the one hand, I was going to offer art lessons, demos,
Tips, right?
commentary about my own work, but also talk about what was going on and actually get some people who were still speaking to me on for interviews. Try to create something positive, but that would kind of say this guy's not a white supremacist. He just isn't. So that was really important to me back then. I was still very much a part of the culture of comics, and being called a white supremacist was something that I couldn't even stomach. Nowadays, again, I don't care. Like, it just doesn't mean anything anymore. But back then, it meant everything.
Right,
It's
right.
really hard to describe the horror of that. So
And how, like, walk me through, like, so what did your family think of this? Like, they must have been like blown away, angry, like,
scared, terrified.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
my wife and I just had our first baby together, our only baby
Mm.
together, and she was diagnosed with autism. And so losing my job, which was imminent, was something that was absolutely just, I keep using the word terrifying. It was terrifying. I woke
Right,
up with anxiety every single day. God only knows what it did. It must have shortened my lifespan severely because I just remember my blood being on fire all the time and just
right.
feeling like anxious.
That's sinking, yeah,
It's,
sinking in your
yeah,
stomach.
like my duty as a father and husband is to take care of my family, and I have a coordinated, super large. I can't even see. I mean, it's like an iceberg. I can see the tip of it, but I can't see how deeply this thing actually goes. This conspiracy to take away my job is amazing. And then people were sending me strange screenshots from these whisper networks where they were talking about how they needed my scalp to hold up as a warning. It was bizarre, Chad. It was really
Wow.
strange. So, like this is the most vocal and visible conservative. He works with Jeff Johns, who is another white supremacist, and we're getting his scalp. So anyway, I as I was doing this, I started to make friends with other comic book YouTubers who weren't in the culture war. They had comic book channels, and they respected me.
Hmm.
They knew who I was. It was still early on. It wasn't until January or February of 2018 that I officially became radioactive and toxic. In October, I was at New York City Comic Con talking to Comics Explained and Comic Storian. Rest in peace, Comic Storian Benny, great guy.
Right.
And I saw how powerful his YouTube channel was. He's walking around this convention and he's a much bigger celebrity than anyone who works in comics. Like he's walking around, everybody's like, "Hey, Benny," giving him free stuff, and he's a high fiving everybody. And he has like 1 million, 2 million subscribers. He's a huge
Right.
star, and all he's doing is talking about comic books. So I said to him, "Benny, how come you, instead of talking about Marvel and DC, why don't you make your own comic book and sell it to your audience? Why don't you do it yourself?" He goes, "I have no interest in doing that." And I said, boy, if you did, you would sell a lot of comic books. I mean, just a lot of
Right.
comic books." And he said, "Yeah, possibly, but that's not where, it's not what I want to do. I just want to talk about Marvel and DC." So that's where I got the idea to use my YouTube channel to build an audience
Uh,
to promote my own comics right back then. And I think I must have known in the back of my head, although I cannot remember, I must have known that it was going to be important that I do so because my job loss was imminent, and it was just 4 months away.
and I mean the market, like at that time too, you have Twitch is exploding. Consumers are becoming a lot more like that's where your audience is, right? They're going to be living online. So thinking and understanding and knowing that you need to, build a pipeline to directly interact with them was very smart. So then, so you launch. So you launch it, and the first one got over $500,000 US,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which at that time was astronomical. Like, what were you like? It must have been not only exciting, but then also like oh shit, now I gotta, like, the whole topic problem. Now I gotta figure it out. Like, now I gotta fulfill all this. I gotta, like, that must have been
Well, I had friends that
crazy.
were still in
Yeah.
mainstream comics,
Okay.
who volunteered to help me learn how to make comics. So when this money
Okay.
came in, it was like, we'll help you. You know, we'll help you learn how to print comics, put them together. You know,
Okay.
demonstrate who these
That's
printers
helpful.
are that are available, so you can shop around a little bit. Yeah, it was. I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just figured I would ask for help from people to learn how to make comics because I didn't have one single idea how to actually produce or manufacture anything. I've had a nice
Okay.
education about that along the way because it's become necessary. It used to be that my entire existence was just sitting down and drawing somebody else's characters, and those were the
Mhm.
days. You can
Yeah.
get a lot more done when you only have one single worry, and that's to pencil and ink. In my case, Green Lantern, and then turn in your page for the day, and then go out and play with your family. But suddenly it
Right.
was, running a business, running an entire business, running a YouTube channel, trying to stay relevant on
Right.
YouTube, trying to maintain your social media so that you're visible because you don't have Warner Brothers anymore and DC Comics to
Right.
keep you in the public eye. And not only that, like none of like Newsarama, comic book resources all disavowed my existence. I suddenly was
Right.
non-existent. And the mention of my name after I was finally canceled was verboten. Like if you mentioned my name on a message board, there were consequences.
Voldemort.
They blocked
Yeah.
you. They kicked you off of the message board if you mentioned my name or
Right.
ComicsGate or Cyberfrog.
Right.
And still to that day, I think that's the case on Reddit and some other places. You're not allowed to talk about ComicsGate or any of our comics. I had a quick education about that, and suddenly my life and my job became much, much, much bigger. But the return for that was an awful lot more money. We weren't expecting that. My goal was
Right.
$8,000, and I don't know what I
Wow.
was thinking. I must have been thinking like, we'll just do this. I don't know, every other month. Like, but how do we live on $8,000 for one single comic book? Then when it has
Right.
to go to printing and all these things, had no idea. But then part of me, I think, was telling my wife, I think we're going to make $40,000 though. So we can say
Right.
$8,000 is the bare minimum, but I think we're going to make 40. And then the
Right.
first day, I remember it was $90,000 came in, first 24 hours.
Wow.
And we just went out and celebrated. We went to a restaurant and we're like $90,000 in 24 hours. This is
Crazy.
huge. And yeah, it turned out to be pretty
Crazy.
big. We had your boy Zach Richard C. Meyer to sort of watch because he had done Jawbreakers, Lost Souls, which at the time we launched Cyberfrog had already made $200,000. So we knew we were on
Mhm.
to something here. Uh,
And how and then after that you hit over 1 million on the on number two, which is insane. And how to date have you done over 4 million in total sales, or do you know that number
I
off the
can
top of
just
your
look
head?
right now. Hold on a second. Let me see. Total sales 8.3 million.
I was a little bit off.
Yeah, eight point
Holy,
three million to date.
that's crazy. That's
But it's
crazy,
all
man.
money
That's
for making things. It might seem like there's
right.
8.3 million in in my
Oh, I
pocket,
understand. There's
but
the cost, but
you
yeah,
have to make things and you have to ship things and run a business and it's
yes,
all very, very, very expensive. We have
yes.
done
No,
well
I
and
yeah,
we're in a much better position now than we were when we worked at DC. Just put it
right.
that way. But yeah, the
What's
comic books and the
yeah.
toys have generated 8.3 million to date.
Wow, that's actually it. Like, seriously, as gross revenue, that's still really impressive. Like, considering, is it just how many? Is it just you, or how many people do you have under all accounts?
It's well, it depends on what you mean. It's me. I got two boys that work in the warehouse. Okay.
Okay,
My wife
okay,
used to run a lot of the show, but she's no longer able
yep,
to. She was diagnosed with
okay.
Parkinson's, so it's
Oh,
difficult
sorry to hear
for
that.
her to do numbers like she used to. She was a banker, so she's really good at
Okay,
that, but she's no longer able to do that. So we got the two boys in the warehouse. I've got Eric Weathers, who does promotion and lettering, of course.
okay,
And then I've got any talent that I hired to help me out making the books. But other than that, yeah, it's just us.
but okay,
Yeah, I wouldn't mind
interesting.
having some more help. I'm not sure I can afford them yet, though. would really like to
Right.
just see how this year goes and next year.
Have you ever thought of raising money to kind of expand your operations? Like, what's your thoughts on that? Because I mean, you have this track record of you've built your own community. You have this track record of over 8 million in gross revs. Um, you have more than a proof of concept. You have tangible, continued ability to generate revenue. Like, there would be potential to do that. Is that something you've ever thought about, or
No, I've never thought about that. I confess. I don't know a business loan, something like that. I mean, I don't really know.
not even not even a business loan, like literally just like angel investors to basically inject capital into the company to bolster it, to expand.
So
Obviously, you have to have a whole prospectus and
I don't know where I
financial
stand
forecast and
today
whatnot.
about that, Chad. But like there was a time when there were people who were hitting up who saw ComicsGate,
Mm-hmm.
famous conservative spokespeople, famous conservatives
Mm-hmm.
who run some of these big websites, hit
Yeah.
me up and said, "Are you interested? We have investors here in Texas and California, and who would
Mm-hmm.
like to help you maintain and run ComicsGate." And I
Mm-hmm.
told them politely, "No, thank you."
Okay.
So I said, "No, thanks." The
Okay.
whole point of this is independence.
Yeah.
If we took
Right.
on investors,
Mm-hmm.
then I think, first of all, I don't know who the money would go to because ComicsGate isn't a company. It's just an idea that a whole lot of kind of independent little miniature companies subscribe to. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
there's, the word ComicsGate, I had to fight a little trademark battle. So I own the word
Okay.
ComicsGate. But ComicsGate itself is, it's almost like this is a belief system.
It's a
It's a
movement. Yeah.
movement.
But
It's a
But
club.
for all caps comics, though, you could make all caps your own kind of indie, or like Image Comics or Skybound Comics. And I always I know that there's always this notion of taking investor capital can come with challenges, which it does, but as long as you maintain majority ownership and maintain majority of the board, it's always something worth
Well, I would talk about it. I mean,
considering.
things have
Yeah.
changed such with
Hmm. Hmm.
my little business. It's growing,
Hmm.
but at the same time, like we could probably use a little help. I think nowadays I might consider it on that sort of level, like just for all caps comics. When it comes to
Yeah.
ComicsGate, which is what was being discussed back
Right.
then, I just don't see how that kind of a thing would have worked, and it would have defeated our own purpose of really
Right.
just hardy, rugged individualists out there trying to make it on their own, but
Right.
with help from each other, just promotional
Right.
help. So,
What do you think? Like comic books in North America, like outside of manga, have been kind of declined. Like we used to back in the early '90s, selling hundreds of thousands of copies. Obviously, there was a whole speculation problem with that as well. But like, what? How is there? Do you see a solution to kind of turn things around? Can it be turned around?
for
What's your
like
take
for
on
comics as a whole medium,
in like this tip, like the superhero, like the North American superhero industry? Like we see like the Marvel, like they're doing good to sell 25,000 copies. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of like a yeah.
it's crazy. I
Um,
look, I don't think so. I think there would need to be another
yeah.
reason to go to the comic book store, and it's not going to be because Spider-Man is really good. It's not going to be
Right.
because this guy or that guy is, Todd McFarlane is back on Spider-Man. Jim Lee is doing
Right.
Batman.
No.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's just not
Do
that
you
big a
think?
deal anymore.
Do you think, Ethan, that um, it's not just comic books; it's the times that we live in the sense of like when comic books were at its peak, the competition was limited in terms of forms of entertainment. Now, you have video games that you can dump hundreds of hours in. And I guess long-winded where I'm going is I have this I've been kind of pitching this idea of I think that comic books to stay competitive have to figure out really how to tackle like digital native comic books, not in the traditional PDF, like that's garbage. Um, but something that is more interactive, something that has gamification layers, something that that is going to be more appealing to the kids growing up with an iPhone in front of their face, opposed to, this kind of legacy base that is primarily 35 to like 55, and there'll always be, I think, of course there'll always be room for print, that's not going away. But I think, people are always saying, oh, we got to get the 12 to 14 year olds, and it's like, well, they're not interested in buying floppies. If they are, they're going to buy like a trade issue or manga. And it's really competitive to like the value that they get from Fortnite, or like some of these, even a Rocket League. It's like a free game, and it's just hundreds of hours of endless entertainment. It's really tough. So I would just love to bouncing that idea of someone like yourself, of like how do you see the industry potentially evolving to kind of help this?
Chad, there's no limit to the potential of a good story.
Right.
And you're talking about technology and meeting people in different places with technology and all this stuff. And if you're selling them slop, which is the new current word du jour to describe just garbage, if you're selling them things that aren't lighting their imaginations on fire, it doesn't matter in what format it gets sent to them. Marvel and DC characters were for us. They were for our generation, and we've moved on mostly, and the numbers bear that out. We've moved on. A lot of us have grown up, and we have families, and we're just not doing comic books anymore. Not in the same numbers that we were. These are for 40 to 50, 60, 70-year-olds, and a lot of us are dying too.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah.
So here's the good news. The good news is that you can see we're not talking about high-tech video games. We're seeing Dogman. We're seeing manga. We're seeing books, actual books, like Twilight and Harry Potter and things like that. Things that take effort. That take imagination. We're seeing them make billions and billions of dollars and meet readers and reach readers. So what are they doing that we're not doing? And it has nothing to do with, you can read it on your phone, does it? You get that stuff at Walmart, you get it at Target, you get it wherever you go. You see these books and they are bestsellers. What they're doing is they're reaching into the next generation's imagination and lighting those imaginations on fire. And for some reason, Marvel and DC aren't able to do that anymore to the next generation of kids. But this manga stuff is. This YA stuff is. It just is. They like it. They prefer it. I don't know what it is about that stuff, because I personally have never read Dogman. I don't know, what that's about. I did read The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I remember meeting that guy back in 2000, I think it was, in Artist Alley, and being like, this looks fun.
Wow.
That guy's like a multi-billionaire now or something like that. It's crazy. So it's ideas and stories are everything. When you don't have any ideas and you don't have good stories, and you are tired and cynical and all of these things, you're not inspired, you're not creating anything wonderful. You can expect those results. You can expect a sleepy, tired readership who isn't interested in what you're doing, and there's no way you're going to reach kids. The kids are, they're just not going to be interested in that.
I think video games could have also been, one of the mechanisms as kind of a draining tool. Like, I think video games make such high revenues now that a lot of maybe top creatives or writers.
But video games have always been here. They've always been here.
Right,
all through my life, video games were here. They were a distraction. Movies, television, people said people aren't watching. They'd rather watch The Incredible Hulk on TV with Lou Ferrigno. It's like that. I mean, this is going to take money away from comics, but it never really has. We can't blame those things. We can't blame external forces for why comic books aren't selling like they used to. I repeat, stories are everything. They're eternal. They last forever. If you have a good story,
good writing,
a good story,
we just need good writers
that reaches, reaches kids, reaches adults, reaches imaginations. You're going to make billions and billions and billions of dollars. It's inevitable. It's always been that way. And no video game is going to stop that. It doesn't have to be on your iPhone. It doesn't have to be in a special format. It can still just be a book. Do you
right. Just
believe me?
create quality. I think um, I think it's a bit of both. I think you have to have good quality, but I also think that you have to be mindful of where your consumers are going. So the consumers that we're kind of always,
Well, go do
that
that
I'm
then.
even
Go, I mean,
marketing.
go,
Yeah, yeah,
go. If you want
yeah,
to work in a different medium, go work in a different medium.
yeah.
We don't do that. We work in
Right,
comics. And
right.
I'm just saying that like the reason
Hmm.
why
Hmm.
comics aren't selling right now or selling the way that they were
Hmm.
isn't because of technology issues. It isn't because of the
Okay.
medium. We know that because we see how well Chainsaw Man is selling.
Right.
We know, and I'm trying to think of more manga books. I'm a
Hmm.
Marvel zombie
Right.
and a DC guy. I don't read this
Right.
stuff, but we know that the kids are picking up manga and reading
Hmm.
these Japanese comics
It's true. It's
and
true.
drawing them. I don't see kids drawing Spider-Man nearly as much as I see them drawing, Goku or somebody like that.
Right.
So,
Right.
we know Dragon Ball Z is a comic book. It's also an animation, but, it sells really, really well and kids are reading it. And we can't, I mean, I used to hear this all the time. At DC, they would sit there and go, we have to
Mm,
change the format of comic books to reach new generations. It's got to be digital. It's got to be
mm,
motion comics. It's got to be this, that.
mm.
Um, it's got to be this, that, Vafangul. It's none of those things. It's really just stories. Stories are everything. Stories are absolutely everything. And if the stories are compelling and amazing, they're going to last forever. And they're going to become movies and they're going to become video games and they're going to become all of those things. But we need more
Right.
imaginative, bright, interesting storytellers who want to create worlds that are going to last forever in the imaginations of today's young youth who will grow up to become adults, still involved, still interested in those worlds. George Lucas, J.R.R. Tolkien, who's that lady who hates trans people? Harry Potter. I'm just kidding. J.K. Rowling. Really smart, inventive writers who have soul and who imbue their characters with humanity.
Right. So switching gears a bit, are you ready to get into some tougher questions?
Well, I mean,
Are
listen,
you okay? Yeah.
let me laugh a little bit because talking about my
Okay.
cancellation, I can feel it still. It's like going through
Okay.
that was tough.
Okay.
Anything else, feel free to ask me. That was the hardest part of the interview.
Okay. Okay. So, I when I first was looking to launch Dash Shroud on crowdfunding, I came across Indiegogo, and the first, as I'm kind of looking at either that or Kickstarter, not knowing that there's basically a rubber stamp that if you host on Indiegogo, you're going to get, that's viewed as a problem for whatever
This is
reason.
one of the results
Um,
of the Whisper Network.
and
Yeah.
and I, yeah, and I saw like, as I was kind of looking at different campaigns, obviously I saw yours comes up, especially at that time. It's like all these massive numbers. I'm like, oh, this has got to be a hot spot to host comics, because this is obviously like a huge community here. Why do you think, like, because some of the numbers, you've done over 8 million, like that's really impressive, definitely undeniable. Like, why do you think ComicsGate has got such a continued bad reputation? Like, because again, you're like, if you compare what you guys are doing versus some of the other pros, you guys still surpass, with massive amounts of not just total revenue, but also the quantity of actually books sold.
Mm-hmm.
I think you posted the other day you sold 20,000 books of one of your.
19,000 of Cyberfrog 3. Yeah, we just hit that number.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
yeah, it's crazy. So that's rivaling. That's like the same number of like a DC Batman or
Yeah.
something. I think I said earlier, like 20-25,000 is typically what they're kind of doing. Um,
Why do you think ComicsGate has a bad reputation?
like
Didn't we
like like
cover
like
that at the beginning of
continued.
this? I mean,
Yeah. So it's just so the summary of that would be continued, individuals who are labeling you guys as bad actors.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Why? I don't
And
know. You would have to ask them. I think that I have learned really quickly over the course of the last 8 years to
Yeah.
become a fighter, because
Right.
this is it for me. I
Right.
can't go from ComicsGate back to Marvel. I've been
Right.
blacklisted there. If I
Right.
do try to go to Marvel, a chorus of well-meaning left-wingers are going to harp on and torture Marvel Comics editors, the
Mm-hmm.
media. Marvel Comics is hiring a white supremacist. ComicsGate is it. It's the last stand for me. This is my land.
Mm-hmm.
This and no further. I've drawn a line here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
ComicsGate already had a terrible reputation by virtue of the fact that a bunch of people who control the narrative and are paid to know how to do
Mm-hmm.
that destroyed the Wikipedia, set up all kinds of what we call gay ops, including Darwin Cook's wife, Marsha Cook, that whole scenario, and set up all kinds of things that I have to explain. I'm going to have to explain these things for the rest of
Right.
my life. Really
Right.
horrible situations to put us in, to make us look bad to the media, et cetera, et cetera. Uh,
How do you deal with that constantly? Because people, like regular person doesn't understand like the toll that that does, and especially the toll that that takes over. Now you've been dealing with it like years. Do you find it challenging to like does that impact your creative ability? Do you find that it affects like your creative ability? Like because you gotta have some stance of zen to be able to get into the
Trying to
zone
think if
of
that
constantly being
impacts
in
my
it.
creative ability.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I
like you don't take it to bed.
No,
Like
I'm
you're not
always stressed out,
yeah.
Chad. Look at me. Okay, do I look like a man who's comfy? Constantly nervous and stressed out, constantly.
Right. Okay.
Because of
Okay.
this. It's look, it's things are the
Mm,
way that they are. I've become a political lightning rod. I've become like a figure of uh, you know uh, people point to me and they say I represent this or I represent that, and it's really up to you, like what you see
mhm,
in me and who I am. I mean, to me, I'm a husband and a father who used to work for DC Comics and made a lot of mistakes that landed him in a situation where I think I am as blacklisted as it is possible to be. And there are days that I
mhm,
wake up and I'm happy about that, because I think it defines who I am in a lot of ways. The fact that I was able to still survive that, when other people who go through literally 2 days of what they put me
mhm.
through end
Right.
their own lives.
Mhm,
I've put up with it now for 8 years. I've dealt with it and survived it, literally survived it. Now that we know that this kind of treatment is something that causes other people to take their own lives, I've survived it for 8 years. And for better or worse, this is what it's made. This is who, if you don't
mhm,
like me, it's because of that. If you have problems with
mhm,
my behavior, the things that I say, that I'm bombastic, as I was called, that I'm confrontational,
mhm,
I'm defending
mhm.
myself. I'm defending
Right.
this. I'm defending what I've
Mhm,
built. I have people who do not have my energy and strength depending on me, other
right.
creative people, and depending on
Mhm.
ComicsGate to stick around so that they can continue to ply their trade and continue to make a living. That's how I see it. Other people see it differently, I guess.
What walk me through, because one of the things that I was a bit surprised by is because I feel like your movement it was similar, or ComicsGate movement was similar to what Eric July is doing. How, like, what happened there? Because like, so, and correct me if I'm wrong. My
I mean,
understanding
we
was you
came
guys.
first. I would say his thing would be similar to what we're doing rather than vice
Sure.
versa,
Okay. Sure. Okay. Sure. Sure. But so you guys at one point were um, colleagues, and then there was a falling out. Like, what happened? Like, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I tried to find out, but you can't. There's just breadcrumbs everywhere. So I was like, what the hell happened?
Well, I mean,
Because you guys should
we
be
should
like,
be.
you
Yeah,
guys are
I
fight. You should be.
see my attitude about indie comics and the situation that we're in
Hmm.
is that everybody needs to help everyone. That's what ComicsGate
Right.
is. John
Hmm.
Malin created this phrase "grab an oar," which means, pick up a paddle. We're all in the same boat.
Hmm.
Literally in the same boat. Now, in the old days, we're all in the same boat meant that we're all in trouble together. So it's
Right.
nice when people kind of say, we're with you, we're in the boat, we're paddling together so that we can sort of go the same direction towards success. Eric July saw what we were doing. and contacted me many, many, many times and said, I'm interested in what you're doing. I want to do what you're doing. Literally said this, like, how do you do this? How do you do this? How did you do this? How did you do that? And I was helpful towards Eric July because I kind of thought, this is great. This is, some bigger voices in comics are starting to step forward and sort of join us. And if they're with us, it's going to help everybody. So we need to be supportive of somebody like Eric July, who has a much bigger platform than I do, and than anybody else in ComicsGate does. So I gave him all of the help that I possibly could. And then he started sending, then at some point, he started sending his employees to ask me, Eric wants to know this. And I kind of said, boy, that's really weird. He's putting a little distance between us here. Ask Eric to ask me, who are you? That's bizarre. Right. So ultimately what happened was, we promoted the heck out of ISOM #1. ComicsGate got together. We promoted the heck out of it. We wanted ISOM.
Did you do art for a cover? Did you do a cover?
For #2. ISOM #1 was huge, $3.7 million. And we were there when it broke 1 million. We were promoting it. Everybody push. Let's go. Let's get this thing out there. He's on Fox News. He's like going to be a new avatar for ComicsGate, essentially. And ComicsGate, not in my sense of the word ComicsGate, but in this movement of rebellion of indie comics against the radical left. So it was important that he succeed. He was a very visible indie comics pioneer here. We were all behind him. He asked me to do a cover for ISOM #2, and I said, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do that. And then at some point, there was a conversation between Dick Masterson and Nina and Yellow Flash and all these guys, Nina Infinity, where it became kind of clear that like nobody was reading his comics. Now I had read it. I read ISOM #1. And I gave him all my nice compliments about it. I said, this is very good. The artwork, this looks like a professional comic book. Great job. It was weird that the hero was kind of a villain, but maybe that's part of his character arc. Who knows? We'll see how this goes. But when Dick Masterson was challenged to read the comic book and he read it, he came back with a list of criticisms that I read. And I went, like story criticism, story structure stuff. Yeah. And then somebody else said, I think these are all 3D assets that are being used in the background by this artist. And I went, now I knew what SketchUp was because I remember Steve McNiven walking me through SketchUp. And I said to him one time very naively as he was drawing like Old Man Hulk or Old Man Wolverine, Old Man Logan. I said, how did you draw the spider buggy so consistently in so many different panels? Like, that's a lot of work to draw the spider buggy like this. Drawing cars is difficult. Drawing exotic vehicles and then having them be like a main character and getting them right, really hard. I said, that's amazing. And he said, you don't know what SketchUp is? It's a digital asset. He's like, I built it on SketchUp and then I, flipped it around and then I would sort of draw from, so I had the reference there all the time. And I was like, it blew my mind. I was a little disappointed by it, in fact, hearing about SketchUp. So I knew what it was. And then suddenly all these digital assets turned up. And it was, you go through the comic and you go, the artist didn't even draw from the assets. He literally took the asset drawing and placed it in his panel, Chad. He just placed and then would do a little doodle over it. Like, this is rust on it.
I see.
This is a comic book that people paid $3.7 million for. And the story, of course, story structure wise, character doesn't really have a direction. There's no plot. There's no drama. There's no inciting incident, like nothing really. So all of this criticism from Dick Masterson was pretty much right on. And I told Eric, I said, you should listen to this. And he said, listen to it? I'm not listening to this guy. This guy's nobody. This guy's never done a comic. I'm not listening to him. And I was like, it would be good for you if you did. See, I'm under the impression that people want to learn to be better comic book creators. It became clear to me a couple of things really quick with Eric July. Eric July is not interested in becoming a better comic book writer. He's interested in making more money. Eric July is also all about, hey, you're either on my side or you're on their side. And see, I'm not on his side. I'm on my side. I'm on ComicsGate's side, and as long as he's doing the right thing, I'm cheering him on. But when you're not taking criticism, when you are not interested in growing as a creative person, when criticism is valid and you're too kind of, it's almost like you're 15 years old. You refuse to hear criticism and take it in because it's going to destroy your whole world if you do, your ego. Part of being a good creative person is ego death over and over and over again. Right when you think you're where you need to be, somebody who knows better comes along, slaps you down so that you have to get up again and do better the next time. You realize you see your flaws and you have to get better from there.
So my understanding then of the story is there was some constructive criticism that was brought to the table, and that kind of was the falling out. But I assume,
right,
because you brought this to the forefront with any influencer, then you have everyone's community. So then the fallout of that is then the communities start going, hey, this is,
I'm on his side.
Echoing.
Well,
Yeah.
Eric told me
So
this. Eric sent me a message. Now, here's the thing. First of all, again, I said a couple of things to Eric in jest that he took very seriously, and I do not know why for the life of me. First thing that I said to him was he showed an airplane tour of his warehouse, and it was empty. And I said to him, can I put some Cyberfrog action figures there? Your warehouse is empty. I could use the storage space. And he wrote back to me like, it ain't fucking empty. My warehouse is full of shit. It's got lots of stuff in it. I don't have room for your Cyberfrog stuff. And I was like, I was just joking, Eric. You know what I mean? Like, I was just kidding. The other thing I said to him, which he really hated, was, I'm really glad you're on the scene and now you're the top dog because now everybody's after you. Whereas before they were after me. It's like I can breathe a little bit and be like, sit back because now, these same maniacs are coming after you.
Because the tribalism is definitely, do you notice, like, does it affect, it must affect each of yours sales a bit, no? Or
I'm sure it does. I'm positive that it does. I'm positive that it does. I'm positive that if we work together, it would be better for both of us business wise.
Because hearing that story, like, listen, people in business, people can be abrasive, and you got to learn sometimes to put water under the bridge and move fast for the greater good. Personal quick story. I had someone who definitely did me wrong in business. We've kind of put the past behind us. We're moving forward. We're closing a bunch of financing for a med tech company that we're launching. And that was someone who I thought I would never speak to again. It's so interesting when you can just post one thing and then the comments are like, F Ripperverse, F ComicsGate, and it's just like, oh man, it's
it should be we're
for the
working
greater
together,
good. We're all,
but I truly.
Yeah. But so I will call you on one thing. So the trash cast. So walk me. So I see that you do the trash casts often, and I do see that you rip on them often. I don't, I don't know everything that you're saying. I just know that you're making fun of them a lot. That you have to be honest. That clearly stokes the
fire. Of course it does. I'm at this point. I'm in it all the way. I am out to.
And that's the double-edged sword, right? Because at the same time, you're a salesman to your audience, and that is also something that. Do you think that is something that your audience also is like they're craving for that too, or I guess what I'm trying to get to is like, is there a potential?
Let's go back to November of 2017.
Okay.
Why did I build my channel? Why did I tell you I built my channel? What was it for?
Right. To get direct access to sell to, right?
To straighten out the storyline, because narratives are being built, and I'm not somebody who's good at building narratives. Okay. It's not something that I do. I tell the truth, basically. I kind of, to my own detriment, I'll say, this is the situation as I see it, and you're going to have to sort it out. And you'll find, if you watch me long enough, that what I'm saying aligns with all of the available evidence that's out there, just by telling the truth. That's what basically happens. what is Trashcast? So after one particular incident where Yellow Flash and Dick Masterson and I and a few others were on a live stream together, and there was this confrontation where it was clear. Dick Masterson said, look, I think, you're running a scam. I think that you're too sensitive to criticism. Even Ethan told you should listen to my criticism. You couldn't do it because of your ego. Why? And it became clear. And basically, the entire panel started calling Dick Masterson and his partner pedophiles rather than address the criticism. Now, I'm here for the comics. I truly am just here creatively to make comic books with other like-minded creators. That's what the ComicsGate King show is about. And I sat there through this situation terrified. My wife said, don't come out against Eric July. Don't come out. She said, I saw that. Do not come out against Eric July. It's going to be really bad for us. It's going to be bad. He's got a much bigger crowd than you. And I said, I know. But then on the other hand, he's basically telling people, he's telling other creators the opposite of what I'm telling them, that everybody needs to learn and grow and everybody needs to work together. Now, the worst thing that Eric July did, he did two things to me. He sent me a text message on my phone, and he said, you know what? I'm tired. The message said, I'm sick and tired of it looking like you're playing middle of the road. You need to be on my side. And if you're not on my side, he's like, I hold people back from attacking you. Okay? So if you're not on my side, and if you don't stop appearing to agree with my critics, then I'm going to just step back and unleash them. Okay? And I'm going to tell them they can do whatever they want to you. And that's the way it is. So I said, we better get on the phone. So we got on this situation here, a StreamYard's call. And I said, I took that as a threat, Eric. That was a threat. That wasn't a threat. What are you talking about? I'm like, listen, I'm from New Jersey. That was a threat. That you're basically saying either I get in line and support you 100%, even when you're wrong, or you're going to turn Nerdrotic, Friday Night Tights guys, heel versus babyface, Yellow Flash, like these guys, you're going to turn them against me, and it's going to be bad for my business. And he said, well, you can take it any way that you want. And I said, well, that's how I take it. That's a threat, Eric. That's a literal threat. I said, here's the whole thing. If you want me to be on your side 100%, then I need to see you. I will be on your side. I need to see you supporting ComicsGate campaigns. I do not see you retweeting us. There are lots of campaigns out there. What I do all day long is I see the campaigns and I retweet them and I talk them up and I try to sell other people's comics for the strength of this entire group here. And I said, I need to see you retweeting campaigns. And he says, why would I do that? He said, we're competition. I'm McDonald's, you're Wendy's. Why would I retweet your campaign? Why would I retweet your campaign? And I said, we're at a fundamental impasse right there, Eric. If you are telling me that you're my competition and you refuse to meet me in the middle anywhere, and I'm supposed to be loyal to you when I disagree with you and I know you're wrong, we're at war. I said, do you want to go to war with me? And he said, no, not particularly. And I said, I don't blame you. I don't think you want to go to war with me. I said, so we got to work this out somehow. And he said, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, I don't know, maybe retweet Cyberfrog campaigns a little bit. Maybe retweet ComicsGate campaigns with enthusiasm. Talk them up. Get people excited about them. And he said, I can try to do that. And so he did. After the conversation, by the way, he retweeted it and went, maybe you want to buy this. Literally, that's what it said. He said, maybe you want to buy this. I don't know. No hype, nothing like that. It was clearly a slap across the face. And I really did not like that. And I sat on that threat for a long time. From August, when it was delivered, until November, I sat on that threat. And I said, I talked to my wife. She said, you don't want to go to war with him. You don't want to fight with him. It's going to be bad. And I sat there, and he came on my show, and he said, Eric literally said, I'm making a list at this point. Okay. I'm making a list of my detractors, of people who are undermining me. I'm making a list. And I said, I'm probably on that list, huh? And he went, I didn't say that. So at some point, I decided I can't take anymore. I saw him go on with Nick Rekieta. Nick Rekieta exposed him in a bunch of different ways, I felt, as a liar, as a fraud. I thought his charity situation was very much a scam, in my opinion. Very much a scam. Here's why I think that. Not for the reasons they were saying. There's a comic book charity that exists to collect comic books for kids who are sick in the hospital. This is an opportunity for you to donate your collection of various comic books to this charity so that sick kids can read a bunch of issues of Spider-Man, whatever, a variety of comics. And you've got a guy who's sitting there saying, you buy my comic books at half price, and we're going to send a whole big shitload of copies of ISOM #1 to this charity. Now, that is not the purpose of that charity. The charity doesn't need a whole brick, a whole shipment, a whole pallet of copies of ISOM #1. I don't care how much money you raised. The charity does not need that. You have exploited the charity, the cause, to move your own product. And nobody brought that up. And I watched that happen. And I said, I don't know if he knows what he's doing is dishonest, but in my opinion, that was incredibly dishonest. That was exploitative of that charity. And the best that I can say about it is later he was pressured into giving them $8,000 cash, which is all he should have done in the first place. And then on top of that, like, maybe it brought attention to the charity, but the last thing that the charity needs is to be getting big bricks of crowdfunded comics, the same issue. That's not what they need. So I watched all this stuff and I revealed his text message. I said, this is what he sent me. And I've been sitting on this. I felt threatened by this for the longest time, worried that if I came forward and said, this is who this man is and this is what he does, that it was going to cost me business. But I can't allow this guy to be here circulating the way that he is in business, telling people that crowdfunding is a scam, that people are just sitting on your money. He clearly wants to wipe out ComicsGate. That's obviously his objective. When he said we will win, I do not see him fighting Marvel and DC. I see him fighting us at every turn. We're supposed to be peers, and we're already the underdog, and we don't need this guy who we helped elevate into a situation of power, turning his power on us, forcing us into compliance, trying to undermine crowdfunding, which is the only hope any of us have to get our comic books out ever. Because this guy happened to have either an angel investor or a big pile of his own money. A rich guy comes in and creates a work-for-hire situation, which gatekeeps all indie creators if they do not do what Eric July wants. And this is why I'm at war with Eric July. And this is what Trashcast is. Because the minute I did that, Yellow Flash turned on me. We were friends. I was on his show all the time. Instantly turned on me. Viciously destroyed the ComicsGate community he was a part of. Revealed our private negotiations about me doing a cover for him. And started saying the worst stuff about me. So I said, okay, I used to do a show that was only about comic books. That was only about promoting comic books. But now he's got Flashcast. We're doing Trashcast. And I'm going to reveal what's actually going on. And every day I'm going to open up the books. We're going to discuss what these people are doing in private to undermine the thing that I've been building for 7 years. We're going to have to do that. It's necessary now because sunlight is the best disinfectant. And I invite anyone to show private discussions that I've had with them where I've been dishonest. I invite anyone to do that at any point in time. In fact, they do it anyway. People are trying to expose me for a fraud constantly, every single day. I see this stuff. When I answer them back, it's like, why are you doing this? Why? Why is Trashcast a thing? I think it needs to be. I think that's what my YouTube channel was originally created for. I called out the phonies and frauds at Marvel and DC, and I got to do it in my own space, my own community. And it's no fun. But if ComicsGate is going to succeed, if ComicsGate is going to continue to be a beacon for independent creators who don't want to do work for hire for Eric July, who can't even write a story, Chad.
But you don't think Eric July's, like the Rippaverse, you don't think it's legitimate products? Like you think it's all bad?
Irrelevant.
It's all,
you know, my thing with him is, I mean, obviously his comics are not good. I've read them. They're not good. They're not. I read them. I reviewed them. They're bad. And that's just, but that's beyond that. We could coexist. It doesn't mean every ComicsGate book is good either. We could coexist very easily. But understand that.
What do you think? So you don't think that there's any path to resolution?
What does it sound like to you after what I just said? Like
it doesn't, but there's always potential chance. I know. I hear you. I hear you.
I'm very reasonable, but I really feel, Chad. Even though I'm not officially the leader of ComicsGate, I think people see me that way.
Yeah,
So
yeah, from limited exposure, yeah,
tip of
you're
the
definitely
spear
the.
defending an entire group
Mm,
of indie creators who need crowdfunding to survive,
mm.
who aren't going to be able to do so, at this point. If things like Ripaverse carry forward, and we're seeing the end results of Ripaverse anyway, the sales have plummeted in decline. I don't know if that's because of Trashcast. I don't know if it's because of Eric. I don't know if it's, I think it's because he was speaking to people who were never really comic book fans to begin with. They just were fans of Eric.
But but didn't they do on like their one anthology like 13,000 copies sold or something?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. Their Saints and Sinners has done
Yeah.
13,000 copies because they have 16 influencers who worked on it who were all
Right.
selling it to their audience. This is
Right.
what I told Benny way back when in 2017 Comic Story, and I said, "You have millions of people that you could be selling a comic book to right now. Why are you not doing it? They would buy it.
Mm.
I mean, they would buy your comic book, even if you're new to comics. They would buy your comic book." So I was right about that. Um,
So the top criticism that I would say that I hear the most echoed from people that are trying to detract on ComicsGate is like, so talk to me about, I would say the common one, and then the top one is like late books. Like walk me through like what's, what are some of the challenges there? And how do you think that you plan to kind of tackle that? And keeping in mind it's just you.
yeah, late books was really tough for me. I don't talk
Yeah.
for other people, but me, I think
Right.
I'm seen as like the biggest offender because there's one book. There's Rainbow the Brute. And Rainbow the
Right.
Brute was just an idea I came up with on a live stream where I was trying to say, what would
Mm.
happen if we took girls' toys and then super high T masculinized them and came up with Rainbow the Brute?
Right.
The audience said that needs to be a comic book. We want Rainbow the Brute. Let's make that happen. So
Mm.
I think I had just funded Cyberfrog 2. And they said, when are
Mm.
we funding Rainbow the Brute? Let's at least fund it because it's going to be $1 million. It's $1 million. We got to do it now.
Right.
So I think that same year, I funded Rainbow the Brute. And while that was happening, Cyberfrog 2 became an enormously huge campaign. Enormously huge.
Right.
I think it $1.47 million for Cyberfrog 2. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Insane.
Bigger than anything up until that point. And we're still working out of our garage. So I had to get a warehouse. Not only that, we got into the toy business and started making PVC toys. And basically Cyberfrog 2 ballooned absolutely out of control. It became enormous. And it became so important to me that as I wrote the story, my dad yelled at me about this. I went, it's supposed to be 48 pages, but it needs to begin here, it needs to end here, and then all this character development needs to happen in order to move to Cyberfrog 3 properly. And so I said, I made the book 73 pages instead of 48.
Okay.
So the book was twice as long. Meanwhile, Rainbow the Brute is doing pretty good business. It's a $500,000 and change.
Yep.
But I'm still working on Cyberfrog 2 Wreck Planet. And then once Cyberfrog 2 Wreck Planet was finished, we approached the actual reality of having to fulfill Cyberfrog 2 Wreck Planet by ourselves. Me, my wife, and her friend Michelle, out of our house, were fulfilling $1.47 million worth of sales,
Wow.
including toys, boxing this stuff up, transporting it from our little warehouse to our home every day so that we can print out tickets. And I bought a Sprinter van and we loaded the Sprinter van. It took months, months,
Mm.
months to send all that stuff out. So in the
So
meantime,
it
Rainbow the
sounds,
Brute is
yeah.
sitting there, and then Warts and All, we did the hardcover Warts and All, and we're fulfilling that as
Mm.
well. And Rainbow the Brute just kind of languished.
Mm.
Rainbow the Brute as it stands right now is about halfway finished. The artwork, I think it's pretty good, but it is late. It's very late. It's a bottleneck situation. And it's
Right.
very important that it get done. But man, we launched that comic book at a point in time where I had still no real idea of what we were in for.
Right.
So getting out from under Rainbow the Brute is going to be great. I will see it like a cork popping out of a champagne bottle. Then everything else should flow a little bit easier from there. But yeah,
So I guess that kind of, well, first of all, thanks for providing that context. That's great. And that kind of segues into my last question with uplifting, other kind of creators in the space within, like, for ComicsGate, and ultimately, you're putting your neck out there a bit because these individuals could be new unknowns, um, and they could be really challenging personalities, right? Because you're not going to know them. You're just kind of promoting their campaigns. Do you like, is that a bit of a double-edged sword? Like, do you find, because then that can lead into the stigma of like rehashing late books because you've elevated somebody new trying to help them out, and
That's a
then
risk.
they don't yeah they don't deliver on their
People have
campaigns, and
disappeared.
that's
Yeah,
the risk with
we've
crowdfunding.
had a
Yeah,
few people who have done pretty well, and then they've just disappeared. Crowdfunding is hard.
yeah,
Fulfilling is hard. Printing a book, creating product, creating a comic book is difficult. And
yeah.
yeah, there are people who will take the money and run, and we've had to deal with that. And it's part of the risk of what we do here.
What if, like, something like all caps, if and again, this is a fantasy wonderland, but if all caps, kind of like a Ripasend, in the sense of utilize your warehouse, um, and if you had a bit of like angel capital, or if you raised funds, through a type of like Indiegogo, you could even crowdfund it a little bit, in the sense of like that it could be repurposed for the point of, we're going to allocate these resources to fund original new IP under all caps, that then you could hire, you wouldn't have to do the workload yourself. You could offload that to potentially somebody else, and then use your infrastructure to kind of help mitigate some of that
Chad, do you
risk.
want to
And
work for me?
only
Like, what are you saying exactly?
I'm just saying, I think,
I mean, these are great
I think,
ideas. I'm just not,
yeah, yeah,
when it comes to being a
yeah.
businessman, I don't think that far ahead. I think, or I don't think that big. I don't have thoughts like that. I have thoughts about Cyberfrog's story and getting the story out there to people and what these stories mean. And I have,
Hmm.
ideas about, what these characters could be. But when it comes to
Hmm.
business and business infrastructure and things like that, that's not what I do. That's what Eric does. Apparently,
Hmm.
that's what you do, but it's not what I
I
do.
just, yeah. Hmm.
I'm a comic book
Yeah, I
artist.
just,
I'm just a guy from New Jersey who somehow got lucky at
I
DC
hear
Comics, and I've got my own situation here. I've got a nice audience full of loyal friends and backers. I've got ComicsGate, that's wonderful. But when it comes to all of this other stuff, that's just not what I do, man. Yeah, I just don't think that way.
well, listen, I'm happy to, send you ideas, because I'm always interested to kind of, I want, the space to continue to grow selfishly,
That's important,
and
man.
see, yeah, I love,
Your
I,
character
I love
looks
the
great.
space.
Look at him up there. Death Shroud
Thank
looks
you.
good,
Yes.
man. It's a good looking book. I said that from the very start.
Yeah.
I
Thank
was,
you. I appreciate that.
I would like to see
Yeah.
it do better. I don't know why it's not a six-figure campaign. It should be.
It's just, I don't, I need a little bit more marketing. That's on me, of like, I put so much money into it. And, I think at the end of the day, I think it will be a I'm hoping, fingers crossed. I'm thinking it's going to be a long-term play. I think it could, pass that six figures, maybe next summer. You know what I mean? Like, I think it will continue to sell, because even for yourself, like, you've had some of the campaigns open on like an in-demand feature, and then you'll see continued
Mm-hmm.
momentum over
Oh,
the course of
definitely.
a bunch of months. So I think, like, of course I'm biased. What I would hope that I do as big as possible, but I do think that, like, the Comic-Con circuit, when they can actually see the book and see the art and see the covers and the cool story and stuff, I do think it could kind of pick up
Can you imagine if Wizard
momentum there.
Magazine was still around, like, and this book was
Yeah.
out there, or Hero
Yeah.
Illustrated, these great magazines that we killed. The comic book industry just
Yeah.
seems to want to die, like, all the time. Like, we had those great magazines. This would have been on the cover of that magazine.
Yeah, I think
Indie
it's,
favorite.
it's a love, it definitely, it's a love note to Todd McFarlane and Darksiders and Diablo and all my favorite games. And so let me ask you this question too. So Cyberfrog, um, also a very cool looking character. Were you inspired by a video game called Battletoads? Or
No,
I
it's
don't know if
been
you
an
know. No,
ongoing
okay,
joke since the day I
okay.
created it.
Really?
It's a
Okay,
turtles. It's
that's a
Spider
good
Man and the
compliment.
Turtles. It's not about. So
Okay,
I created
okay.
Cyberfrog in 1993, and
Mhm.
I remember I was working at an airbrush stand with this guy
Mhm.
Alex Feliciano. I'd never
Mhm.
forget this, a Puerto Rican kid, And it's funny, like he had an overweight white girlfriend who would take his money right out of his register and go spend it at Sears at the end of the day. This guy's running his own business, just letting his girlfriend rob it. But I worked there, and when I would show him pages from Cyberfrog, and he went, "Oh, Battletoads," and I went, "What's Battletoads?" And he goes, "It's a video game on the NES." And I'd never heard of it before. Never heard of it before. To me, it was a love letter to the Turtles, to Spawn, to Spider-Man, to Pit, to Savage Dragon. All of those influences are in there. I mean, Turtles, frogs. I love frogs. And so it just made sense. But
no, the design's cool, and the Salamandroid design's really cool too.
Oh, thanks.
You did a great job, and I can see why they tried to do the whole show, and because it ports really, the design's great, like it ports really well to like toys and all of that stuff. So
and we did it, man. We made toys thanks to crowdfunding,
which is crazy. I saw that.
Look at this.
There's
one pin. Can I touch it right here right there on the ceiling?
Yes.
Cyberfrog toy there. Yeah, we made action figures, and they came out great, and it was just amazing. Those are my DC action figures over my shoulder there.
So you just pulled that off, like, so
yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So you manufacture them in China, and then like crazy.
So you see these DC toys that I did. I designed those when I was at DC, and I knew the guys. Cool. And when DC moved from New York to LA, those guys became homeless. Not homeless literally, but come work for me. So cool. Like those guys made the Cyberfrog toys, and they're making everything that we do.
Was that a stressful process? Because that would have been a huge departure and completely different than
it's not. Man, I remember talking early on. I had a little bit of help from Nick Barucci, who received no end of grief because of his from Dynamite Comics for his association. He told me at the time, I said, well, why don't you make a Vampirella toy or something? He said, we're trying to work it out, make the numbers work. He's like, it is hard to make action figures. But I thought I could probably make it work with crowdfunding because we're able to we're raising big amounts of money, like somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. That's all you need to make an action figure or two, right? So I built up the audience. I said, we're going to make an action figure. I hired a sculptor who did, who did Cyberfrog. And then somebody else had done a beautiful 3D sculpt of Heather Swain, which you can see over my shoulder there. You see her on the train tracks there?
Yeah, the gray one. Yep.
So I saw that and I said, wow, can I buy that from you? The design. And he sold it to me, and we broke it up into an action figure. We redressed it a little bit, turned that into an action figure as well. And I told the fans about it. I said, we need to do this. Nobody's able to make action figures, especially quality action figures as good as Hasbro. And I built up to it for about 2 months. Warned everybody, we're doing this. I need your money. I need you to have $100 for me in 2 months, please. And they came through. We raised $660,000 on the first campaign. Then I did it again. I figured that wasn't enough. And it wasn't. That was not enough money. $660,000, not enough. So I did another couple of paint variants on the same toys and launched it again. Made another 250, and even that wasn't enough. But we were able to take some profits from Blood Honey and a few other past campaigns, warts and all, and pour that into it to pay the import fees and everything. I told my wife, it'll pay off. It'll pay off. It'll make money. We're finally in the black with the Cyberfrog toys, but man, that's
congrats on
all
that,
I wanted to do.
Sure.
It's those toys are just everything to me. We were able to do it. We got Rainbow the Brute toys being made right now too. We're gonna try again with Cyberfrog toys if I can. If we can make it happen. It isn't easy. You really have to. Right now, I'm telling everybody, if we want to make this, I have this Salamandroid sculpt ready to go. We need $1 million to make this toy.
Wow.
And
does the factory say, hey, you have to order 5,000?
That's correct. It's called minimum order quantity. It's not 5,000. Yeah. For Cyberfrog, it's 8,000. So each one of them, we had 4 different designs, 8,000 of each. And so that's why I did paint variant. This is why Eric July and I fighting is not useful to him. We should be getting along, because I would have said, yeah, I see you're buying at least 10,000 of these toys and you have no paint variants, and there's no way you're going to sell 10,000 of them at all without variants. You should, one of them should be in, camo. One of them should have blood all over him. One of them his uniform should be ripped up. And you would be selling 4 toys rather than just 1 toy per customer. You'd sell 4 toys. You'd get their.
And that's why Todd McFarlane did that on his as well, because I was a sucker and bought all 3 of his
Spawn. I did too.
Yeah.
I did too.
Yeah.
So he knew what to do. I mean, when it comes to crowdfunding, that's what you need to do. And Eric went and used McFarlane Toys with their factories and their enormous MOQs, which are related to their distribution model, which Eric doesn't have. And nobody helped him with this. He got suckered into this situation where I think it's really, he's going to lose a ton of money on those ISOM toys. I hope he really, really wanted to make them, and I hope he likes them enough, because his warehouse is going to have about 9,000 of them floating around. It's a lot. Cyberfrog has basically sold through at this point. We have about 150 of each figure left, which is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. They're selling great. And we're going to do it again, but you have to prepare people. Salamandroid, I'm saying, look, I need 300 from each of you. I'm doing the math, it's like, if I have 1,000 backers, 2,000, if I can get 2,000 people to buy it, then how much money am I going to need from each of you to make this work?
And I'm assuming you have to do an analysis on your backers of fatigue. You have to be okay, we just did a campaign. I'm going to have to wait a little bit until
your ears open,
a little bit of breathing.
And really listen to them. Because it's 1 or 2 of them are going to say, I'm ready. I'm in for $2,000 right now. But you have to listen to the majority of them. And the majority of mine right now are like, where's Rainbow the Brute? So, now's not a good time to do it. But once Rainbow the Brute delivers, Cyberfrog 3 delivers, I might be able to say, hey, I need 3,000 of you to pony up $300 each to get us to this point where we can make a Salamandroid toy. But that point ain't now, and it would be stupid to even try. But that's what crowdfunding is. I mean, it really is just about kind of doing those kind of figures, doing those rough mathematics in your head, having an end goal that's feasible, and knowing what things cost. At this point, I've made enough toys that I know what it actually is going to cost to get that toy from my brain into my warehouse. And sometimes it's feasible, but I think most of the time it isn't. That's why so many people were telling me back then, this isn't something that anybody can do, much less you. But we did it.
Well, and you said it took, and it said it still took a long time to get it into the black. So it was a.
But I had faith in it. I mean, the thing is, I look at my character.
Well, yeah, but it's a cool product. It's a cool looking product.
I could sell that to any kid. If I went,
it's cool.
If I set a booth up somewhere and said these are Cyberfrog toys, I would sell them to kids nonstop. I did a Garden State Comic Fest, which was filled with families and kids, and I had Cyberfrog set up, and most of the people that stopped were like these little boys who were just like, what is this? And they bought everything. Yeah. Mommy had a big purse, and they bought all of the toys. Will you do a
Salamandroid at some point?
Yeah, well, I have a Salamandroid PVC toy. You see the white version of them right there on the shelf there.
Okay, yeah.
I do have a PVC, but a posable Salamandroid, 18 inches tall. To scale with Cyberfrog there would be, I'm thinking $300 I got to charge for it to make it.
Maybe it would be better to do a statue.
Well, we've got to make the action figure, dude. We got to make a.
Let's do it.
You've already got a PVC statue. We need that guy over this shoulder. Look at him compared to the size of Cyberfrog there.
Yes, massive.
So that's the action figure versus the Cyberfrog action figure to scale with the Salamandroid action figure. That's 18 inches tall. So with a long tail that would be very articulated, he would have to be super mega articulated. And you're looking at a $300 action figure. Now it's possible. It is possible. Again, you have to go, do I have 3,000? I do have 3,000 backers. Do I have 3,000 backers that will give me $300 and change?
Right.
Not right now, but in the near future, I think so.
Well, man, I'm listen. I've taken up a ton of your time, and again, I'm super grateful for you taking the time to jump on the call and answer all my tough questions and getting to know you. It's great to actually finally chat and to hear everything directly from yourself, opposed to little breadcrumbs of all over the internet, and you don't know what the hell is what. So it's definitely great.
I enjoyed it. I thank you, Chad. Thanks for the invitation. Yeah. I wish you the best on Death Shroud. If there's anything that we can do to help you, obviously, mentioning it here and there is good. But I think people seeing it and people meeting you and talking to you would be even better. So the more you get in the public eye, and are able to enthuse about your own creation, I think the better your success is going to
Yeah.
be.